we're still getting trickling in information, video footage of what happened to Irina Zarutska, who is the Ukrainian refugee who was stabbed by a 14-time felon, or I guess 14-time criminal who'd been released 14 times from prison. I want to make sure I'm careful here so I don't get accused of defamation. But they released 15 seconds of additional video, and I'm not sure why only 15 seconds. I'm not quite understanding this, but I want to play this for you. This is if you are faint of heart or of prone to not enjoying these sorts of things, I understand it. Just divert your eyes for 15 seconds if you're watching on any of the streams here. But go ahead and roll this, Dwayne. So what you see here in this video is she's been stabbed. She's now bleeding out to death, and she looks shocked. She's sobbing. She is completely alone. She's in sort of a fetal position type posture, these last moments of her life. And every single person in the train does nothing. No one comes to her aid. No one comforts her at all. No one acts alarmed. Everyone acts sort of slightly, vaguely disturbed by what's going on. But presumably they're aware that something horrible has happened, and no one comforts her at all. There's no humanity there at all. And this is very disturbing to me because you have to wonder when you're seeing this clear pattern of demonic influence within the United States these days. I mean, I take for example, the trans shooter who shows up at a church and guns down children while they're praying. I mean, there's something going on and with our humanity at this point. And I don't understand what's the point of this specific 15-second footage because we're missing a lot of context here, and I think it's only going to raise more questions than answers. But just note how there were people rushing to the cameras yesterday, Van Jones being one of them on CNN, who was out there trying to act as though that this was not some sort of a racial hate crime when there was reports or I guess footage suggesting the guy is yelling, "I got the white girl." And we all know what would have happened if this was the shoe was on the other foot, if this was a black man stabbing if there's a white man stabbing a black woman or a black man for that matter. We know what would have happened with the Al Sharptons and the Van Joneses. Remember Van Jones talked about how he doesn't want a white lash or there's a white lash going on. That's why Trump won. These people see the world through the lens of race, and then all of a sudden you see solid evidence of someone committing some sort of a racial hate crime. They try to immediately explain it away if they're forced to talk about it at all. Truly disturbing. We've got this clip here. Why don't we roll this cut 10 here, guys?
Let me just say a couple of things. One is, what happened to that young woman was horrible. And it's everybody's nightmare. If you're in any public space, subway, whatever, that something bad's going to happen to you or somebody you care about. So it does strike a chord. We don't know why that man did what he did. And for Charlie Kirk to say, we know he did it because she's white, when there's no evidence of that, it's just pure race mongering, hate mongering. It's wrong. Then he says that if something like that had happened the other way, there would be sweeping changes imposed on society. Where is the George Floyd Policing Act? It didn't pass.
Okay, pause.
Even when you...
So, but the point about the George Floyd case is George Floyd was on fentanyl and he was resisting arrest. He also had a criminal record. And there's no evidence that there was any racial motivation at all with that particular case. Now, I don't like that Derek Chauvin knelt on his neck or around his neck, whatever it was, for 8.5 minutes. I don't think that's a good look for police. I don't think it's positive. In fact, there should be consequences. That's my position on that. There's no evidence that there was anything racial, period. Think about the George Zimmerman case, which is one of the original ones of these sensational racial cases, where they acted as though that George Zimmerman preyed on a black boy, when in actuality George Zimmerman was not white, he was Hispanic. And then there was a huge scuffle to the point where George Zimmerman had his head all ripped up in the back, bleeding, the back of his skull, showing a really intense scuffle took place. And that was covered up by the media for days afterwards, while everyone rallied to try to act as though there's some sort of a lynching going on in this country, that there is some sort of a white uprising that's taking place. So we know exactly what would have happened if the races were reversed here. And the fact that this is the behavior, it actually, I think, is going to increasingly intensify any racial tensions and divisions there are. Now, I grew up in West LA. My first boss in the conservative movement was Larry Elder. I don't live in this world. We're reintroducing a world that is not colorblind. Where I grew up as a conservative person, everyone was colorblind. There was not even a thought that you would see race and color when you interact with other people. They're teaching us to see this way by blatantly denying what we're seeing. He says twice, "I got that white girl." And Van Jones out there on CNN, CNN's okay with this, saying that This is nothing to do with race. In fact, the bad guy is Charlie Kirk. And I was on Charlie's show yesterday. Charlie was conducting a responsible discussion, but he's trying to say things that other people are afraid to say, which is the truth in many cases, unfortunately, with this particular topic at this particular time. Let's roll the rest of the cut.
You had a white police officer murder a black man on live television. The whole world saw. There were no sweeping changes. In fact, not one law was passed at the federal level. So I think that's an important thing to point out. The other thing is, you mentioned the thing about cashless bail. I think this is a big challenge that we have. Would you have felt better if there had been cash bail and the mom had come and put down $1,000 to let him out? It's not about cashless bail or no cashless bail. It's about the fact that we don't know how to deal with people who were hurting in the way this man was hurting. Hurt people hurt people. What happened was horrible, but it becomes an opportunity for people to jump on bandwagons. And then for someone like Charlie Kirk, he should be ashamed of himself. No one mentioned the word race, white, black, or anything except him. What people mention is the horror of what happened.
You have to admire the confidence. He holds his shoulders back. He speaks incredibly articulately, and he declares something that's blatantly false. The guy mentions white girl twice. And it's obvious that that's what that was about. And so I want to see all the people, we're all the Ukrainian activists. We're all the people who are obsessed with the Ukraine war and would like for the Ukraine war to never stop getting funded. Whatever your take is on Putin, the people who are Adam Kinzinger, who had Slava Ukraini to his X handle on X the Everything app. I want to see all these people out there for this Ukrainian refugee and standing with her and standing up to her, and standing up to all these people who are trying to shut down the discussion of what really happened, so that there is nothing that we learn from this event. There are things that can be learned, and that we need to reset on law and order in this country. That's part of the reason why I wrote Breaking the Law, is because the nature is that the people on the left, they do not think of law and order as a value. The values that they have are things that advance Democrat politics, left-wing politics. And when Democrats run these cities, and they think the way to deal with too much crime is to let criminals back on the street so that you don't count their crime, you don't count as a felony. So temporarily, the crime stats go down, but the cities get more dangerous. That's been their policy for decades in all the major cities. I have lived in them. I've lived in Washington, D.C., lived in Los Angeles. That is the policy there in those single-party towns. That's not working. It's not working anymore. The people get it. And Donald Trump and Tom Homan and all these people who are in charge with enforcing the law in this country are now starting to get the picture that this is not just an 80-20 issue. This is the proverbial 97-3 issue. And I will tell you this. Black Americans know this as well as anyone, that there's too much violence in our cities and it needs to stop now. And people like Van Jones, if he's going to keep talking this way, then he's going to be part of the problem, because people want to sort this stuff out. People want to see the bad guys away from polite society, away from our Ukrainian refugees.
For full shows, live and on demand, it's Salem News Channel.